6 this evening, Proverbs chapter 6. Entitled this evening's message, Transformative Truths. Transformative Truths. Another message title that honestly could stand for a title or a subject heading for the entire book of Proverbs, but fitting for tonight. Transformative Truths. Now, we have a bit of an ambitious overview this evening. I want to look at verses 1 through 19, although we will just summarize one section of those, and we're going to look at four major principles, or we could say four transformative truths. And we'll look at this in chapter 6, beginning in verse 1, and we're going to work our way through all the way to, Lord willing, tonight, verse 19. If we don't make it there, I'll just summarize it when we get to the end, but I think that will be all right. Transformative truths, Proverbs chapter 6. Beginning in verse 1, the Bible says, "My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with the stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go, humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself, as a roe from the hand of the hunter, as a bird from the hand of the fowler." First transformative truth this evening is this: escape the snare. Escape the snare of bad commitments. In these first 5 verses, Solomon deals with financially poor decisions, specifically becoming surety for a loan. We have a process, co-signing, that's roughly equivalent to what's going on here, where you want to avail yourself or let someone else use your credit to secure their loan. And if they are to default on it, that default falls back on you. That is a co-signing process, and something that today ought to be done with a great deal of caution and investigation, both into the character of the person you're signing for, the reality of where they are financially, and your ability to absorb the loss should it happen. In this passage, Solomon is not dealing with anything real specific. It is broadly talking about making a terrible financial decision. And so he grabs one that is potent, that can be very, very damning financially, and that is becoming surety, the guarantee for someone else's loan. Escaping from the snare of bad commitments, we see in the first 2 verses, the escape. First, we find the position that we're in, being surety for a friend. You've stricken your hand with a stranger. The friend being someone who is Jewish. You have become a guarantee for their purchase. The stranger being someone outside of Israel. In either case, he says, if you have done this, you've probably done so foolishly. And looking at the decision that you've made, how did you get there? Well, I have 2 thoughts here, and how people end up in these positions and ways to avoid them. First is, some people quite simply are gullible. They're gullible. Earlier in Proverbs, Solomon identified them as simple. They don't truly understand what they're doing. They accept the risk of a co-signing, not really they're just helping somebody out. I have talked with people who co-signed, and then it was predatory. It was almost immediately defaulted on, and they were left with everything and were absolutely and completely shocked. At no point in the conversation while they were present was that explained to them. It was just, sign here, thanks, you can leave now. I'm just helping somebody out. I'm going to sign a paper for them. And got left with what ended up being a bankruptcy. They accept the risk, not fully understanding what they're doing. Perhaps there is a degree, and we'll get to this in the next thought, but in manipulation into helping someone. The playing on their, we just need your help to do this. And it might be, in fact, it's especially once the consequences have presented themselves, the loan's been defaulted, and you're left holding the bill, the reality is they did not evaluate the character of the person getting a loan. That's not to say it can't be well-intentioned by both parties and something outside of their ability to control happens. That could happen. That's not typically the case. It's not typically the case. When a co-signing fails, it's usually because the person who got it in the first place had no ability to keep it or no intention of honoring it. Some people end up in this place because they're gullible. Some people, it's the opposite. Though they are the co-signer, they are the manipulative one. When we look at this broadly, the Old Testament encourages generosity. Deuteronomy chapter 15, the first 15 or so verses deal with some of this principle as far as the giving and the not charging interest on loans. It's against the Mosaic law to charge interest on a fellow Israelite, Exodus chapter 22. Though it is permissible by Mosaic law to charge a reasonable interest to a non-Israelite, even then, charging a predatory, exorbitant level of interest was considered immoral. Nehemiah deals with that specifically, and Solomon will later in Proverbs 28. Sometimes people get in a position like this where they are in a financial bondage because they thought they had a brilliant way to beat the system. I co-signed, but really they're going to be stuck with it. You're not smarter than the banking system. You aren't. This is equivalent to the house always wins, and you are never the house. They think that they can avoid payment. They think that they are the predator, that they're gaining the advantage, when the reality is they are the prey. Some people are gullible. Some people are manipulative. But in Solomon's illustration here, they're all caught in the same trap. Regardless of how they ended up there, they're stuck. The spider doesn't care how the fly got in the web, he's got them. They're all in financial bondage. They are in danger or in the presence of severe debt. They are caught in the beginnings of that financial riptide, ripping them out into the deep where they may not ever be able to overcome it. Escape the snare of bad commitments. Identify how people get there so you can make sure that you do not. Gullible, manipulative, the reality is they're caught in a financial trap. Escape the snare of bad commitments, and then embrace humility. We begin the solution in verse 3. Embrace humility. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go, humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. This would be the same friend that you have become surety for, and the person that you have become indebted to. He says, look, you've realized you've made the bad decision. Go eat some dirt. Go before get the parties involved. I have made a decision I cannot deal with. I understand the rigidness of our current system and signed paperwork. And still the same can be true, and we'll get there in a minute. You realize you've made a mistake, you can go there and you can at least mitigate the damages. I've never had, fortunately, the opportunity to do this myself, but I've spoken to those who have, where they did make a mistake and they went in and they basically offered upfront cash to give some benefit to the person that had the contract, to have them rip it up and render it null and void. So I'm going to pay you part of what you would get over time because I cannot do this. But I can take this hit right now and avoid it over the long term. And they just smiled, gotcha. But they did. They avoided it, and it was mitigated. He says, you go make sure your friend, in this case, you have a verbal contract. A man's supposed to be bound by his word. Indeed, he would be. He'd be sworn in front of the elders of the gate. You go back there and say, I was a fool. You already knew it, but I figured it out. And I need your help. No personal pride should stand in the way of making this right. If pride is keeping you in it, humble yourself to get out of it. We could what if and scenario ourselves into limitless possibilities of financial bondage. But if there is a measure of pride in not saying, yes, I was stupid, yes, I have to go to that person and say I made a mistake, I was wrong, I was foolish, I should, whatever, and you won't do it, that's what has to break, that's what has to bend the knee. Solomon says, get out of it and be willing to eat some dirt to do so. Embrace humility. Sit down with those that you made that agreement with. Be willing to take a short-term financial loss to get out of a dangerous financial situation. I would add to this, and Solomon will emphasize this in other places. You find yourself in this mess, start with humility and get some wise counsel. Do your research. Know what options are available. Bring someone knowledgeable with you into a meeting room. They might not have any authority, but they can help you not make your mess even worse. Escape the barrier or the snare of bad commitments. Embrace humility. Verses 4 through 5 says, enact your plan quickly. Enact your plan quickly. Verse 4, give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. That'll be relevant here in a moment. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Do not wait until tomorrow. You're like, wow, that was a terrible, terrible thing, but it's getting late. I'm just going to go on home. We'll deal with this thing. No. Go knock on the door. Get this thing taken care of tonight, or maybe the night times when you spend the researching, when you figure out the options that are truly available and what you might ask for outside of the norm as far as options are. Don't wait till tomorrow. You need to burn the midnight oil. You need to keep moving to mitigate or to negate the foolish decision that you have made. Enact that plan quickly. And to tie this all together, in verse 5, we're given that picture. The picture of a trap being sprung, of a hunter overcoming an animal from the animal's perspective. The bird's been caught in the snare. When the hand of the fowler comes, there's a moment when the hand is there and the snare is released, you have the tiniest fraction of a chance to get away. Be like the terrified bird. He's not sitting there waiting until he's got his neck broke, try to get away. Be like the roe and the hunter. Jeff, I thought of this. Be like at the fish who's at that last bit of coming out of the water. Give her the last shake. I've had some fish that successfully escaped my hand with that last shake. They were coming out of the water and made it back in. What is he saying? There needs to be an air of urgency. Like an animal at the last moment of escape, that is the picture that he gives. Poor business decisions are one way to harm your future. Recognizing them for what they are, understanding the urgency of getting out of them and humbling yourself to achieve that end is vital. Now Solomon's going to take going from the realm of a bad financial decision that can damage your future to another danger that is very simple and terribly deadly, that of laziness. Verse 6, go to the ant, thou sluggard. What a word. Thou sluggard. You say the word and you're thinking of someone that's slow, that's lazy, that's dirty, all the things that come with that. And all those things do go with that. You don't live in a house with the roof falling down on it, as he's going to use in a different place to describe that without being dirty. Slow, the lazy. Reject the ways. Okay, so escape the snare. And then secondly, our second transformative truth, establish a pattern for success. Escape the snare and establish a pattern for success by first rejecting the way of the sluggard. Reject the way of the sluggard. Okay, how does someone become a sluggard? I don't buy that you're born that way. You become that way. How does someone become the sluggard? How about this? Through the pursuit of a painless life. The pursuit of a painless, or the pursuit of ease. Pursuit of a painless life. Avoiding what is difficult is a sure way to create a pattern of laziness. Avoiding what is hard is a sure way to begin and to solidify a habitual pattern of laziness, which makes you a sluggard. What's interesting is, as we sit in this room, for some of you, what is difficult, what is hard for somebody is, it's as easy as pushing a door open for somebody else. You can't comprehend why it's hard for someone else. Let me give you a personal example, something that I hate doing that is hard for me. I hate making phone calls. I hate calling in and asking people for anything. I hate it. Fortunately, my wife is good at it, and she doesn't hate it. And she has told me many times, some of them fairly recently, I don't understand how this bothers you so much. but I love you and I'll do it for you, okay? Or I'll get you to this point, and then it's, get on the phone. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Jeff, you do that for a living. I hate it. For me, that's hard. I don't like it. Now listen, if I refuse to do it, it is going to create problems that stick. They're not just little things that bounce off, and they will snowball. If I continue to refuse this thing I don't like of making business-related phone calls, I hate them. It's not just being put on hold. I hate the whole process. I do it anyway. It has to be done. I say that because it's somewhat silly, although it could get serious in a hurry. But for each of us here, there's things that are difficult, they're hard. Of course, there's things that we would all agree are hard. A philosophy of living a painless life, avoiding difficulty, is a sure path to become the sluggard. Doing the least work possible along the same lines is a sure way to find yourself out of work. So the pursuit of the painless life, not only the pursuit of the painless life, but also the pursuit of the parasitic life, being that parasite, choosing to live off of the generosity of others. Solomon's not the only one that deals with this. Let's get our fingers moving to 2 Thessalonians. Hold your place in Proverbs, right back. But to 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 10, Paul says, "For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Let there be no parasites among you." If they're not going to work, whatever that ends up looking like, then neither should they eat. It's often been said, and been said rightly, that's a great way to cure a sluggard. Hunger is quite the motivator. He will not work, neither should he eat. When able-bodied people choose to sit at home and collect handouts. And what bothers me is those who do that intentionally, they talk about getting paid when they get their handout from the government. And they are as much or more indignant about anything that would delay or diminish or anything their pay, as though they had worked hard for it and they were owed it by their work, and it should never change, only ever increase. It's maddening. It's the lifestyle of the sloth, of the sluggard, the pursuit of a painless life, the pursuit of a parasite life, and the pursuit of a pleasurable life. Proverbs 21:17 says, "He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich." A sure way to poverty is living beyond your means, knowing what you're bringing in and what you want to live like and what you're putting out, and this is greater than this one, is a sure path to ruin. Choosing to buy it now with money you don't have is a sure path to ruin, and that ties a clear line directly back to the surety issue. Because when we do that and we put it on plastic, we have bound ourselves to interest of the credit card. The credit card is used like cash would be used, and it's not carrying over a balance from month to month. It can be fine. But when it is simply a means to buy something that you don't, okay, let's assume you do need it, but you could wait for it and save it up and buy it without the credit card interest cost, and it not be a devastation to wait. It's tempting, isn't it? I could get it right now. Easily. I'll type in 4 sets of 4 numbers and bang, it's done. Or beep, and it's done. I don't have the money. I don't intend to have the money. I'm going to pay it off as I pay 21 to 27% interest on it. Wow. Sure path to poverty. Embracing the reality of normalizing interest payments of, and here's the key word for all of this, frivolous, pleasure-seeking debt. I will never forget the conversation between two parents of a family of my bus kids I picked up. I remember being quite shocked that this particular family missed a couple of activities I had lined up because they went to the state fair that was in the area. They went every night, and they came back loaded down with fair junk every night. And a little while later, maybe a bit later, we heard the conversation of acute financial distress. They took out either a $2,000 or $2,500 personal loan to have a good time. That was money they absolutely did not have. And it put them in a place where they couldn't even make the payments on that. It was frivolous. It was binding. It was can't eat this week kind of problem. And so we reached out and we helped that family, even knowing the cause of their financial distress, helping with food. Understand the way of the sluggard. And then receive the wisdom of the ant, verses 7 and 8. Okay, how to get to be a sluggard? 3 ways we just presented here: pursuit of the painless life, the parasitic life, the pleasurable life. Reject the way of the sluggard. Then receive the wisdom of the ant, verses 7 and 8. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. What are her ways? Which having no guide or overseer or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. The wisdom of the ant. One commentator said this: foolishness only labors when the stomach growls. Wisdom labors because it knows the stomach will growl. That was a good statement. Wisdom of the ant. 3 M's for the wisdom of the ant. The first is be motivated. Be motivated before there is a need. The ant is out working. Ant's working when there's out harvesting food, when there's food to harvest. It's motivated before there's a need. It doesn't wait till winter to go out into work. Choose to be. It's a choice. It might be a minute-by-minute choice, but it's a choice. Choose to be a self-starter. Keep things moving. The ant is always moving. It's always doing the next thing. Jeff, the ant is eating the elephant. How? 1 bite at a time. Ants can eat an elephant. So take those bites. Choose to work while there's work to do. Don't be the person who always looks for ways to leave early or to skip out on work. Be motivated before there is a need, not driven in desperation by the need that you've created with laziness. First M is motivated. Be motivated. Second M is be mindful. Be mindful. Summer is going to end. The ant does not conceptually understand that, but God has hardwired that ant in that while the getting's good, the ant's out getting. Be mindful that summer will end. Work while you can. You have no idea what tomorrow will bring. Choose to save for when hard times come. This is looking right in the eye that cause of poverty, that cause of sloth is the pleasure seeking. Choose to avoid those things, understanding, we use terms today like an emergency fund. Those things are excellent. That's good financial wisdom. Be mindful that summer will end. Choose to save when hard times come. Be motivated before there's need. Be mindful that summer will end. The third M is be meticulous. Meticulous. Be careful with your opportunities. Proverbs 27, verses 23 and 24 says, be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds, for riches are not forever. And doth the crown endure to every generation? Be meticulous. Be careful with your opportunities. Treasure those opportunities that God gives you to provide for your family. Evaluate your opportunities to invest and carefully consider before you buy. I have a process. If I want to make a large purchase or what I evaluate for myself to be a pleasure purchase, it's a vanity purchase or for fun purchase, I will choose to, and it is an intentional choice, I will research that category, that object absolutely to death. I can talk circles around any salesman. I can tell them facts and parts about the procedure. I can tell the plant it was manufactured. I research it to death. Why? I found that if at the end of that, I typically don't want it anyway. I know everything that goes wrong with it. how hard it is to fix. All those kind of things I learn about. And if I still want it at the end, I typically get it. But I will research and research and research. It's one of the barriers I put in front of myself for a vanity purchase. I realize I don't need that thing anyway. It's going to break. I don't want that. It doesn't do what it cannot do what it claims to do when you actually look at whatever, all the parts and pieces. That's more than just looking at reviews. I don't trust those. Those are bought and sold quite easily. But you look at the material, the object itself. That's one of my strategies for myself. Be careful with your opportunities. Receive the wisdom of the ant. Reject the way of the sluggard. Receive the wisdom of the ant, and then receive the warning early, verses 9 through 11. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Oh, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of thy hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Those of you that enjoy the linguistics, especially of your proverb literature, I like this. This is by John Kitchen. It says, the demise of the sluggard is set forth under two similes set off in synonymous parallelism. What does that mean? That means that Solomon crafted this statement to be a verbal exclamation point. The question, how long? How long are you going to keep doing this? He's now addressing the person that is entrenched in laziness. This is the lifestyle. This is the habit. No matter how they got in there, which aspect of it has brought them to this point, that's where they are. How long are you going to stay there? Don't you realize what's coming? The want is one that traveleth, and then the need as the armed man. The consequences, and here's the lesson in this, is that consequences of laziness can arrive violently and irresistibly. The consequences of laziness can arrive with a suddenness as violence. You have money until you don't. And then when you don't, it's gone. But it's not, we don't all think the same way on this, but I think most of us do. Some people in your gas tank, some of you ride that thing all the way past the red E at the bottom. All right, you live life on the edge, especially around here. And some people stop and fill up every time they pass a gas station. They keep that thing all the way topped off. Most of us fall somewhere, I think, toward the first end of that spectrum. Don't stop every time you get gas because that's not something you enjoy doing. Some people do. That's great. You never, ever, ever will run out of gas. Finances, sometimes we don't even begin to really get concerned until we're way past the point of should have been concerned. Or when those unexpected issues, those emergencies of life strike and you're unable to recover. The consequences of a laziness arrive suddenly. We look at this example that's given here in verse 11. Thy poverty shall come as one that traveleth. The image here is the one that traveleth. It comes and it strikes. The one that traveleth refers to an ambush on a road. It's a dangerous thing to travel many parts of the country. Always had been. Even Jesus gives the parable of the Good Samaritan. He describes a stretch of territory that through the entirety of Israel's existence was known for what Jesus talked about, being dangerous. It being a place where people could hide and come out of nowhere, out of rocks, out of just around bends, out of hills you can't see the bottom of unless you're standing next to them, and attack. And in that moment, the unsuspecting traveler is quickly overwhelmed. Thy want, your need, comes as fast as an armed man. That's literally a man of the shield, talking about a light infantryman who bears a shield and a short sword, and they are the forces that are able to move very quickly from point to point and to strike in vulnerabilities in an army formation in battle. They are known for being fleet of foot and hitting hard and fast. We might refer to them today as shock troops. They have enough armor to get close, and once they're close, you're cooked. If those guys hit you hard when you're not ready for them, it is a bad day for whatever line of troops that got hit. Those are the images he's putting forward. That's how he's describing the consequences of the sluggard. But you just go, and it seems like they're always lazy, they're always lazy, they're always lazy until the bottom falls out. Receive the warning early. Like the professional soldier, poverty can strike quickly with overwhelming power. So our first two transformative truths are escape the snare and establish a pattern for success. Our third truth is the one that I've summarized, verses 12 through 15, would say, a naughty person, a wicked man, walketh the froward mouth, he winketh with the eyes, he speaketh with his feet, talking about signs communicating before you would ambush somebody. He teaches with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He soweth discord. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. We see in this path of destruction that we're called to exit, wickedness completely penetrate a person. Wickedness can become an all-encompassing lifestyle, and God's judgment on the wicked, though there is often a period of long suffering, when it falls, it is decisive and devastating. I do want us to look at verses 16 through 19, our fourth and final transformative truth, and that is this: establish the facts. God hates sin. Establish the facts. God hates sin. Verse 16 says, these 6 things doth the Lord, what does he say? Hate. Hate's a strong word. That's why it's used. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. We read the opening of verse 16, there's going to be a list of 7 things. It says, these 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7. The idea is you're leading up to the 7th, and the 7th is a step above the rest. These 6 the Lord hates, and the 7th is an outright, complete abomination to him. Now, take a look there. We'll get there. But what is the 7th thing at the bottom of 19? Of all these things, which is it that the Lord sets above the others? He that soweth discord among brethren. Hold on to that thought. We're going to break these up into sets of 3, or of 2. Look at them in three sections here. And the last one will roll in as the exclamation point. Establish the facts. God hates sin. Verses 16 and 17, we see pride in word and in action. Pride in word and in action. Verse 17 says, a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. A proud look is the look of conceit. It's a look that reveals an arrogant heart. Isaiah 10, 12 to 14 talks about, gives an illustration of haughty, arrogant, prideful eyes. And the word here that's translated pride is used in Numbers 15:30 to describe willful and defiant sin. There's a pride that says, if I want it, it ought to be mine. If I did it, it was right. I am the sole arbiter of truth. That is a proud look. And then we have the proud look, and then we have a lying tongue. We have the look of conceit, the words of a cheater. In Psalm 109, verse 2, David describes someone he does not name, but a deceiver who has slandered him. But Psalm 109, the larger context, is a messianic psalm describing Judas. It's quoted in Acts chapter 1, verse 20. The cheater, the deceiver, there's the proud look, and then there's the speech that follows it. I know better than God. Are the words that come out of the lips of the proud man. The look of conceit, the word of a cheater, and then the touch of cruelty. The touch of cruelty. Hands that shed innocent blood. If you are the sole arbitrator, if you know better than God, then what's a little cruelty to achieve your ends? Everyone else is either an additive to get you where you want to go, or an obstacle to be run over. Hands that shed innocent blood, the touch of cruelty. Pride in word and action. Then we see wicked thinking that births wicked action in verse 18. There's a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, and feet that be swift in running to mischief. A heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. This is Solomon's statement of what God saw in the hearts of mankind in Genesis chapter 6. And in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, when God, who hates this, who hates hearts that constantly devise wicked imaginations, Genesis 6:5 says, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Thoughts, only evil continually, devising wicked imaginations. What was God's solution then? Absolute and complete eradication through a flood, sparing the one man and his family who was still yet righteous. Does God hate this sin? He's proved it, folks. Yes, he does. People who plot and plan to hurt others, that's not only thinking of jumping somebody in an alley and beating them up. That's the plotting and planning for gossip and rumors. That's the kind of coordinated social media slandering that takes place. It's those manipulative actions in the workplace. Accusations in the church house in the guise of prayer requests. Have you heard about such and such and this and that? We got to pray for them. It's organized. Many times it's premeditated. And God hates it. Those who intentionally lay traps for others. Not only are those that think about it, there's those that are quick to jump out and to do it. God despises these eager workers of wickedness. Those who would organize and energize groups of wicked people. Those who are constantly poised to do harm and promote wickedness. God hates those that are quick to running to mischief. Verse 19 says, a false witness that speaketh lies, and the seventh, he that soweth discord among brethren. We've seen pride in word and action, wicked thinking that births wicked action, and serial dishonesty that brings ruin. We look at verse 19, it says, a false witness. The word for false here is a different Hebrew word than the one that's translated a lying tongue. The lying tongue describes a distortion of facts for personal advantage, and the false witness describes a manufacture of complete fiction. We understand the difference. One's manipulation, one is a lie, is untrue from the first word to the last word. These are people who corrupt justice, unjust judges, dishonest witnesses, morally broken lawmakers, and there's no shortage of them in my culture. People who corrupt justice. And then the seventh, the one that God holds up, and seventh are an abomination unto him. Those who sow conflict among God's people. The Lord hates the person that sows strife. Note that it's not simply strife that God hates, but the one that creates it and spreads it. He that soweth discord among the brethren. How do you keep that from being you? Where you become the one who God abhors. We can look at multiple other places where God deals with those, his people, Israel, that are doing exactly these things, and he gives the same solutions over and over and over. He tells them, rather than sowing this dishonesty and destruction, to sow kindness, to sow generosity, to sow peacemaking, to sow forgiveness, to sow mercy, to love the poor, to be merciful, to do good to those around them. This is what God wants to see, and this is how we prevent from ever being the abomination in God's eyes. These transformative truths were written so that we can avoid the consequences of foolish business decisions, the sudden destruction that laziness brings, of becoming the person that's permeated with wickedness, and not treading the path and becoming the person who personifies the sin that God hates. So let's take this bounty of practical wisdom tonight as we go before the throne in prayer. Father, I ask that you be with us now So we turn our hearts to you in prayer. Lord, that you would take hold of this wisdom of your word, Lord, that you'd apply it to our hearts, that we would live out these transformative truths. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.